Well, I was proud to actually get to sit down with Jimmy Crockett before he passed away. I can't believe we were fortunate enough to be able to do this, but we were. And we've got a clip that we want to play here because we did discuss this UWF sale and acquisition with him. And I want to give some context at the end, but we've got a clip here that runs, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes. Anytime you want to pause it, we can just holler and we will, or we can just recap it at the end and let you respond to it. But we've got a few minutes here that I thought was important for us to have this discussion. So without further ado, here's a clip from Conversations with Conrad, which is a part of the full interview series that we have over at adfreeshows.com. So if you like what you hear here, we have hours and hours of conversation with Mr. Crockett. Here's a few minutes from Conversations with Conrad on adfreeshows.com.
My TV guy, Rob Garner, said with that loss of syndication, that puts us over the magic number for national buys.
It was 100, right? Because that would have put you at 110, I believe.
Well, whatever it was,
yeah,
it was the magic number. That's what the carrot was for us.
I see.
And it worked, but we never got the money. So, it was one of those. It was a good decision and a bad decision.
Do you remember if they offered a price up front or what the negotiation process looked like?
Oh, they wanted all this money up front because they'd heard that Vince got $1 million, and it was like, no, you're going to get a percentage of what happens, and that's the way it ended up.
What sort of due diligence, if any, did you do going into that deal?
Well, verifying they had the TV shows on.
Right.
What is syndication? They did check that, and the important stations that we needed to make sure the program stayed on was verified, but that was about it. Because, we weren't going to run Lafayette, Louisiana anytime soon.
Is it true that Jim Ross made sure he carved a deal out for himself as well?
I'm just...
Allegedly, he not only got a piece of whatever Watts received, but he also negotiated that he would be one of your lead announcers.
Yeah, he was going to be my lead, one of our announcers. Mm-hmm. He's a good announcer. Why wouldn't
Of course. How was Watts to deal with when you're putting this deal together?
Pain in the ass.
Okay. Can you tell us anything about that?
No. He was difficult to deal with at best, and then just,
Were you getting the vibe from Watts or JR when you would get to these sort of difficult parts of the conversation? Well, if you don't want it, Vince will take it.
That never came up because I don't think it really was there.
Okay.
Vince didn't need either one of us, to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah, at the time he had over 200 syndicated stations himself.
He wasn't buying anything at that point. He was taking.
I see. I think the argument would be you could have just taken it too. Do you feel like in hindsight it was a bad deal in that regard?
I was in a hurry to get to that magic number.
Right.
And that was the only way to get there in a hurry. I was at the attrition of talent over a period of time. Oh, in 2 years, we might be able to have that many in syndication. We weren't going to be there in 2 years.
So you felt like the clock was ticking.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel that way right after WrestleMania? I ask because this deal closes 10 days later. So it feels like, A, it could be a reaction to WrestleMania. B, it could be a little ego of, I don't want Vince to lap me here in our race. And C, to your point, you need those magic number of stations.
Well, we needed the magic number, and we weren't going to make it going the speed we were going. And Vince, he's going to have all the talent he wanted.
Let's talk about the details of the deal. Do you recall what you originally agreed to pay and ultimately what you wound up paying once?
Well, I don't remember what we agreed to, but he got very little out of it in the long run. I know that because he was screaming.
Let's talk about that. What was the state of their affairs once you really got under the hood? Once you bought it?
It was a shambles. I mean, you made the statement they didn't have long to live, and they didn't. And that's what we bought, something that wasn't working.
Not only do you inherit their business, you inherit their past due TV bills too, right?
We didn't pay them.
Okay.
Yeah, we inherited them, but go call him.
Yeah.
And we lost a few stations, but we got to the magic number.
At any point, once you actually get your hands on the thing, did you feel like Watts or Ross had misled you?
I don't think they misled me. I think my expectations maybe were unrealistic, but I don't think they misled me.
Did you and your brother differ on that? I feel like David still has some hard feelings about that deal.
Yeah, I think David was more into the TV production and all, and I think when he got a hold of what Watts was doing, it's like, this is a piece of shit. And so it's, from his standpoint, I could see how he said, this ain't what we thought we were getting.
Was his relationship with JR strained as a result?
Probably.
But you and JR were fine.
JR, to my face, never has said or done anything for me to say anything bad about JR.
Right.
I mean, when he came to work for us, he worked hard and he did a good job.
What do you think of those remarks from Mr. Crockett about the way the deal went down and the way he viewed your role and all that?
Well, he was being truthful. I appreciate the nice things he said about me. I always like working with Jimmy. He was easy to approach, but the thing it's funny about pro wrestling sometimes, Conrad, infrastructures is something that Vince and his company have mastered. For example, AEW is still, we're growing, new people every day, seems like. But you got to have an infrastructure. You got to have checks and balances. You got to have good people positioned in key roles and allow them to do their job, man. So I think that was part of the issue. In other words, I'm trying to say is that Crockett's make this huge purchase, but I don't know if they had a meeting ever to talk about organization.
Right.
Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? The key thing about wrestling is and always will be the booking. And so, I think Jimmy perceived that Dusty would just proceed as usual, doing all the booking, he and JJ. And that needed some freshness. That needed new ideas and new input. And it didn't happen. And that was a problem.
Mr. Crockett would go on to say they were spread too thin management wise and couldn't take advantage of a lot of the good things from this deal. It was the beginning of the end for Crockett here. Vince's business is going to get stronger and stronger. It just gets away from Crockett. WrestleMania 3, as you heard, sort of had everybody trying to figure out what in the world are we going to do to compete with this. And he even said, if Mania wasn't such a huge success, he may not have gone through with this purchase, but nobody really would have known. But I brought up the question about David because I know that you guys all got together for the first time in a long time at Starcast rather, in Baltimore in 2019. I think it was your first. I think it was one of your first times seeing them in a long, long time. And you guys, the three of y'all, took a picture together
Right.
before our shows that day. And
I'm proud of that picture, and I'm glad that we're all there together. And David and I, if there was animosity or bad feelings, they're no longer.
no,
You know, we get along great, and I'm happy for that. I'm proud of that we were past that shit. We got past the wrestling stuff. Pro wrestling's wrought with this kind of deal. It's jealousy, insecurities, all kinds of stuff. And I say that it's probably no different in a lot of businesses. But pro wrestling certainly has its share of paranoia and uncertainties.
what I find interesting is, for whatever reason, I think Mr. David Crockett had a little hard feelings towards you about the way this deal went down. But in reality, he was upset with his brother because he felt like, hey, we don't have to buy Watts territory out. If we just wait, they're going to go out of business on their own. And then we can go pick up those TV stations. But his brother Jimmy felt like this was necessary. He loved your vision. He saw your vision. They took a stab at it, and of course it didn't work. But at that point, it feels like Vince and his global expansion was inevitable. I don't know that anything could have worked.